Have you ever noticed how attraction seems to change as you get older? Many men over 50 quietly assume their most desirable years are behind them. They believe women no longer notice them, that attention belongs to younger men with louder energy and fewer responsibilities. But this belief couldn't be further from the truth. In reality, mature men often become more attractive with age, not less. What changes isn't your value, but the way attraction is expressed. Women don't flirt with older men the same way they flirted in their 20s. They don't chase. They don't tease openly. They don't make it obvious. Instead, they observe. They test awareness. They explore connection quietly. The real issue isn't that women aren't interested. The issue is that many men misread the signs. They dismiss curiosity as politeness. They mistake emotional probing for casual conversation, and in doing so, they miss moments that could have led to something meaningful. Mature masculinity carries calm, stability, and emotional depth, qualities many women actively seek. But attraction at this stage requires perception, not performance. It requires understanding how women communicate interest without risking rejection. Once you recognize this shift, everything changes. You stop wondering if women notice you and start realizing how often they already do. As women mature, the way they express attraction becomes more refined and more cautious. Direct flirting may feel risky, especially when they're drawn to a man who carries experience, confidence, and emotional weight. They don't want to appear impulsive, obvious, or overly eager. Instead, they choose a safer and more revealing approach. They test awareness. For women, attraction isn't just about physical appeal. It's about how a man shows up emotionally. Is he present or distracted? Confident or reactive? Grounded or seeking validation? These qualities can't be measured through compliments or playful teasing, so women rely on subtle tests to observe them. Questions become the tool. Not random questions, but carefully chosen ones that allow a woman to sense a man's emotional temperature. Through conversation, she watches how he listens, how he responds, and whether he understands what lies beneath her words. This method protects her from rejection while giving her valuable insight into his character. This is especially true with older men. Women assume maturity brings emotional history. Before opening themselves, they want to know whether a man is calm, secure, and capable of connection, or emotionally closed off behind routines and habits. Testing awareness isn't manipulation. It's feminine self-protection. When a woman asks the right question, she isn't playing games. She's quietly asking, is this man someone I can lean into safely? Most men were raised in a world where interest was expressed clearly. If someone liked you, they said it. If they wanted something, they made it known. That expectation doesn't translate well into modern attraction, especially when it comes to how women communicate desire. The biggest mistake men make is assuming that attraction will look obvious. When a woman asks personal questions, shows curiosity, or lingers in conversation, many men dismiss it as friendliness or politeness. They tell themselves, she's just being nice, and move on emotionally. In reality, that moment may have been an invitation. Women rarely announce attraction directly because doing so exposes vulnerability. Instead, they create small openings and watch what a man does with them. If he responds with awareness, presence, and confidence, the connection deepens. If he responds literally or dismissively, the emotional door quietly closes. This is why so many men realize interest only in hindsight. Days, weeks, or even years later, they look back and recognize the signs they missed. Not because they weren't attractive, but because they misunderstood the language being used. Attraction often disappears not from rejection, but from lack of recognition. When a man is interested in a woman, he usually shows it through action. He offers help, attention, guidance, or protection. He moves closer. He does something. Women, however, often express interest in a different way. They ask questions. These questions are not about gathering information. They are about creating connection. A woman uses questions as emotional bridges, small openings that invite a man to step closer without pressure. Each question allows her to feel how he responds emotionally, not just what he says. Through questions, she observes his presence. Does he listen carefully or rush to answer? Does he stay grounded or become defensive? Does he understand the meaning beneath the words, or does he only respond on the surface? These responses tell her far more than compliments ever could. For women, questions provide safety. They allow curiosity without exposure. If the man responds with warmth and awareness, the bridge strengthens. If he misses the meaning, the bridge quietly collapses. This is why certain questions appear only when a woman feels drawn to a man. They are invitations, not interrogations. When you recognize them, you don't need to impress her. You only need to be present. And that presence is what deepens attraction. By the time a man reaches his 50s or beyond, women often assume certain things about him. They assume he has lived many chapters already, that his routines are established, that his emotional world may be settled or sealed. Because of this, women become more careful before stepping into his life. Unlike younger men, older men are not expected to chase or prove themselves. Instead, they are evaluated for stability, depth, and emotional availability. Women want to know whether there is space for connection or whether they would simply be fitting themselves into a life that has no room for intimacy. This is why these subtle questions carry more weight. They help a woman understand whether she would be welcomed or merely tolerated, whether she could be a meaningful presence or just a passing interaction. Mature masculinity is attractive because it offers calm, grounded energy. But that same calm can be misread as distance if a man isn't emotionally expressive. These questions help women clarify the difference. For men over 50, recognizing and responding to these moments correctly can change how relationships begin, and whether they begin at all. When a woman asks a man, "Do you spend a lot of time alone?" It may sound casual, even harmless, but this question carries far more meaning than most men realize. It is not about loneliness, social habits, or how busy your calendar is. It is about emotional access. At this moment, the woman is quietly asking herself whether there is room for her in your life. She wants to know if you are emotionally open or emotionally closed, if you live in your routines by choice, or if those routines are walls that keep people out. Women phrase this question in many ways. Do you usually go out on your own? You seem comfortable being by yourself, are you? Are you seeing anyone or just enjoying your space lately? These variations all point to the same curiosity. She is assessing whether intimacy with you is even possible. If she had no interest, she would not care how you spend your time. This question only appears when she is already imagining a closer connection. Many men misunderstand this moment because they answer it literally. They think she wants facts. But what she is really listening for is your tone, your openness, and your emotional posture. Handled correctly, this question becomes the first step toward deeper connection. Handled poorly, it signals emotional closure, even when that was never your intention. The reason many men lose momentum at this stage is simple. They answer the question on the surface, not beneath it. When asked, "Do you spend a lot of time alone?" most men respond with factual explanations instead of emotional awareness. Some say, "Yes, I'm alone most of the time," which can unintentionally signal emotional isolation or disinterest in connection. Others say, "No, I'm always busy," which can sound like there's no space for anyone new. Both answers miss the point. Another common mistake is over-explaining. Long stories about routines, responsibilities, or past relationships drain the emotional energy from the moment. Instead of feeling invited, the woman feels shut out. What women are listening for is not your schedule, but your openness. A flat or dismissive response tells her that approaching you emotionally may not be welcome. These mistakes don't come from lack of confidence. They come from misunderstanding the language being used. Attraction doesn't fade because of what a man says. It fades because of what his response implies. A grounded man understands that this question is an invitation, not an inquiry. His response doesn't need detail or justification. It needs balance. The goal is to communicate independence without isolation, openness without neediness. The most attractive responses carry calm confidence. They suggest that a man values his space but welcomes meaningful connection. For example, "I enjoy my time, but I'm always open to good company. I have my routines, but I make space for people who matter. I'm comfortable on my own, and I appreciate connection when it feels natural." These responses do something important. They tell her that you are emotionally available without signaling emptiness. You are not searching, chasing, or waiting, but you are receptive. Tone matters more than wording. A relaxed delivery, steady eye contact, and an unhurried presence reinforce the message. This creates emotional safety. When a woman hears this kind of answer, she feels possibility. She senses that stepping closer wouldn't require effort or pressure. That feeling naturally encourages her to continue the conversation and often leads directly to the second, more revealing question. When a woman asks, "What are you looking for these days?" the conversation shifts. This is no longer casual. This question carries emotional weight, and women don't ask it lightly. It requires vulnerability because it reveals that she is considering you as more than a passing interaction. This question is not about your job, your past, or your achievements. It's about your inner direction. She is trying to understand where your life is moving and whether there is intention behind it. Women are drawn to men who are emotionally alive, men who know who they are and where they are headed. For a woman, especially when engaging with a mature man, direction equals safety. A man with clarity feels stable. A man without it feels uncertain, regardless of age. She wants to know whether your life has movement or whether it's standing still. Women often phrase this question in softer ways. What do you want at this stage of your life? What are you focusing on right now? What feels important to you these days? Each version points to the same curiosity. She is imagining what it would feel like to be part of your world. Your answer helps her decide whether that world feels grounded, purposeful, and emotionally secure, or undefined and closed. This moment is a quiet evaluation, and how you respond determines whether the connection deepens or fades. Many men lose this moment without realizing it because they respond with uncertainty. Answers like, "I'm not really sure," or "I'm just taking things day by day," may sound honest, but they often communicate emotional drift. From a woman's perspective, unclear direction feels unsafe. It suggests a lack of intention, not freedom. While peace and simplicity are valuable, they must be paired with clarity. Without it, a man can appear emotionally stagnant, even if his life is full. Women don't invest emotionally in confusion. They are drawn to men who move with purpose, even if that purpose is quiet and personal. Direction doesn't require grand ambition, but it does require awareness. When a man appears unsure of what he wants, a woman instinctively steps back. Not because she judges him, but because uncertainty creates emotional instability. Attraction fades not from rejection, but from the absence of clarity. Answering this question well doesn't require a long explanation or revealing your entire life story. What matters is direction, not detail. A grounded man speaks with calm certainty about where he is headed, even if the path is simple. Strong responses reflect intention and emotional awareness. For example, "I'm building a more meaningful chapter in my life with the right people. I'm focused on experiences, connection, and living with purpose. I'm looking for something genuine that feels natural, not forced." These answers communicate movement. They show that you are not drifting, waiting, or reacting to life. You are choosing how you live it. At the same time, they leave space for her to imagine herself within that direction. Clarity creates attraction because it creates safety. A woman doesn't need to know every detail. She needs to feel that you know yourself and respect where you're going. Delivered calmly, without performance or pressure, this kind of response signals emotional maturity. It tells her that being with you would feel stable, intentional, and grounded, qualities that naturally deepen desire. These two questions are not random. Together, they form a complete emotional assessment. The first question explores openness. The second explores direction. When both are present, attraction naturally deepens. From a psychological perspective, women are drawn to men who feel emotionally safe and purposeful. Openness without direction feels unstable. Direction without openness feels distant. But when a man embodies both, he creates emotional gravity. The question, "Do you spend a lot of time alone?" helps a woman understand whether connection is possible. The question, "What are you looking for these days?" helps her understand whether connection would be meaningful. One tests access, the other tests intention. Clarity is what makes a woman feel secure. Security allows her to relax, and relaxation is what allows desire to grow. This process often happens unconsciously. Many women don't realize they are testing. They are simply responding to instinct. That is why these questions appear across ages, cultures, and situations. They are rooted in feminine psychology, not social trends. When a man recognizes them, he doesn't need strategies or techniques. His awareness alone becomes attractive. Understanding this dynamic changes how men experience connection, especially later in life. Imagine you're talking with a woman in a relaxed setting, a cafe, a bookstore, a social gathering, or even through a thoughtful online conversation. The interaction feels easy. She's engaged. She smiles a little longer than necessary. The exchange flows without effort. Then, without warning, she asks, "So, do you spend a lot of time alone?" This isn't random. This is her first step forward. She's opening the door just enough to see whether you notice. If you respond with calm openness, the energy continues to build. The conversation deepens. There's warmth instead of distance. Later, sometimes minutes later, sometimes another day, she asks, "What are you looking for at this stage of your life?" This is her second step. This is the moment she decides whether to go deeper or gently step back. If your answer carries clarity and direction, she feels possibility. She senses stability. If your answer feels uncertain or closed, the connection quietly fades. Men often think these moments are coincidences. They are not. They are emotional checkpoints. Women rarely reach them unless interest already exists. When you recognize these moments and respond with presence, the interaction naturally shifts from conversation to connection. The truth most men never hear is simple. Women don't test your words, they test your awareness. Attraction is rarely announced. It is revealed quietly through moments that require attention rather than effort. A woman who desires intimacy will not make a dramatic move or verbal confession. She will create space and see whether you recognize it. These two questions are not about information. They are about connection. They are her way of asking whether you are present enough to meet her emotionally. Men often believe they missed opportunities because they weren't attractive enough, confident enough, or successful enough. In reality, most missed opportunities happen because the invitation went unnoticed. Awareness is what separates chance encounters from meaningful connections. When you learn to recognize how attraction is communicated, you no longer guess. You know, and that understanding changes how you show up, not just in relationships, but in life. If you take only one lesson from this message, let it be this: attraction doesn't disappear with age, it becomes more subtle. Women don't announce desire, they invite awareness. And those invitations often come in the form of two simple questions. Do you spend a lot of time alone? What are you looking for these days? These questions are not casual. They are emotional doorways. When you recognize them and respond with calm clarity, you step into connection naturally. When you miss them, the moment quietly passes. Mature masculinity isn't about trying harder. It's about noticing more. Presence, openness, and direction are what create attraction at this stage of life. If this message resonated with you, reflect on moments from your past. You may realize you saw the signs, you just didn't recognize them at the time. Leave a comment saying, "I see the signs," if you're ready to move forward with awareness and confidence. Your engagement helps this message reach men who need it most.